Okay. Fall skills are charged. Flasks are up. Fractured monster slain. Let's go fucking kill them. Wait, never mind. Don't have single target set up. Alright, now let's kill him. Alright, a little dicey on building poisons, I gotta admit. Drop a fall rain of arrows to help with that. But it's a low level all, so. Nah, we hit one. I didn't think there was gonna be another. And we are slowing the fuck out of him. With the temp chains in. We didn't have that on the hexproof guy. Quiver is sick. I got really lucky crafting that. Only took me like 3 tries with bound and aberrant fossils. I don't have Piercing and I'm not using Garage Weakness, so clearing the trash is a little bit icky. But they don't actually do very much damage, so I don't have to worry about it. It'll clear them eventually. And actually having a few trash mobs up for when all respawns just means I'm gonna stack poisons faster. So, it's no big deal. Where is he going? Just blink over that. Easy. Freaking easy, man. Hey, we got an amulet. Okay, what am I gonna get? Purity of Fire reserves no mana. Second Purity amulet. Sweet. Hey guys, how we doing? I wanted to bring you all a overview of the build that I've been playing in Hardcore this league. It is a Champion Herald of Agony build, as if you've seen any of my last few videos on the channel, I'm sure you're aware. And it's been, I would say, my most successful Hardcore build to date. It's level 97, and is 25% of the way through that without showing any signs of stopping, and has brought down tons and tons of hardcore bosses for the first time for me. I've done all of the Breachstone bosses pure, I've done Uber Elder, I've done Shaper, I've yet to do Uber at Ziri, going to be taking her on soon. I've done Kurgle, I've done the Vol boss whose name I can't pronounce, and I need to find an all still, but the number of bosses still for the build to take down is getting few and far between. Even took revenge on Vol Temple just today, so things are going pretty well. And I have 8,888 life, which is great. That's just really satisfying. Ignore the 89 energy shield, which has been tilting me all day. But yeah, this video is just going to be quickly going over my gearing choices in particular. I've been getting a lot of questions on those. You can find the passive tree for the build as well down beneath. If you have any other further follow-up questions, feel free to ask, but I've got some notes here. I'm just going to dig into my reasoning as I've written it out, so you guys can understand, you know, how to put the character together, maybe have a brief guide to potentially follow, and before we get started there we go. As well as that, just so that you're not staring at my character's ugly mug this whole time, I am going to intersperse this with some various bits of gameplay in the background, so feel free to enjoy that as I talk over my gear choices. Alright, so first, Quill Rain. There are a few different options in the bow slot, but I really, really value Quill Rain's incredibly high base attack speed of 3 per second, because it allows you to play so smoothly and fluidly and safely in boss fights. You get significantly higher single target DPS out of your crawler if you craft a bow with multiple plus gems effects, like plus support gems and just generic plus gems, as well as a vicious projectile support roll. However, I feel that the damage boost that I would gain would be unnecessary, and losing the utility of Quill Rain is enough of a penalty that I don't want to switch. That, also alongside the difficulty of reshuffling mana reservations in the event of switching to the higher reservation prerequisite of a pseudo 7 link, is going to keep me to Quill Rain. Feel free to experiment with going with Elder Bows with Vicious Proj and plus support gems effects. It's not something that I value highly enough in order to switch off of the Quill Rain. I put a very, very, very high priority on super smooth play and super fast attack speed. The helmet, let's move on to this one. This is kind of the pièce de résistance of the build. This helmet is where I choose to put my links instead of in a bow. As with an Elder helmet, you can acquire a very powerful pseudo 6 link for your crawler. And it's not even all that difficult. At least, maybe I just got lucky. But across this build and the previous iteration of it, I've been bound fossil spamming with single socket resonators, and it's resulted in this helmet with +3 gems, minion damage support, and a bit of reservation reduction. A helmet that I died on last time, which was basically this helmet, but without the reduced reserved roll, so very close to being this good. And I've also used multiple +2 gems helmets and a +2 gems minion damage support helmet as intermediary stepping stones, because you really do hit that minion gems roll really often, so it's not too terribly difficult to craft a intermediate helmet while you work your way up through the Atlas and work on crafting a better one, partially because the crafting method is so simple. I just found the most effective way over a few different smallish tests of various different fossils was just bound fossil spamming because they are so cheap. The amulet slot, let's move on to that. It's pretty simple. Life and resistances. The build does a lot of pathing across the tree, so I'm not really starved of any particular stats. And one way that I can take advantage of that, not needing the stats, is that I can replace the implicit with a talisman implicit. And I got pretty lucky and hit exactly the one I want, which is a Longtooth talisman that gives physical damage reduction, very powerful defensive stat. As well as that, keep in mind, you need some amount of flat fire or flat lightning to activate cold damage elemental equilibrium for your crawler. Sometimes this build in certain reservation situations will use physical to lightning support, so I opted for flat fire so that if I'm ever doing lightning damage, I'm still not harming my crawler's elemental damage output through elemental equilibrium. Flat fire, I think, makes the most sense, because added fire never really, in any of the path building or like in-game testing that I did, never really beats out damage rolls like a leveled empower or a damage on full life, or even something like a what is it? I can never remember it. Vile toxins. You know, there's plenty of other better damage links than added fire, so fire seems like the weakest element for the crawler to make use of. So getting flat fire damage for myself for equilibrium makes the most sense. Let's move on to the quiver. Bound fossils here can give you a minion movement speed roll. As you can see, it goes up from 15 to 30%. We got a pretty good roll in this one. And that is incredibly highly desirable. It's the single most noticeable stat in the build, I would say. The more minion movement speed you can get, the better. And as well as that, switching to this quiver allowed me to drop minion movement speed as a link, which is a very high reservation link that doesn't offer much in the way of damage without really having the crawler feel slow and sluggish. So pretty big upgrade there. As well as that, if you can do it on an Elder base, you can get the 20% chance to poison on hit roll, as I have here, which then lets you drop these points on the tree since you no longer need that poison chance. And I chose to invest that into some max cold res for deeper delving. You could throw that at another 3-point jewel socket. You could throw that at these move speed nodes that I've picked up now that I've over leveled more than I thought I would. That sort of thing. Other than that, life res, I don't actually have any alley res here, but a nice chunk of chaos res, which I actually needed. Got pretty damn lucky rolling this quiver. This is basically the ideal quiver, so aim for something like this. The projectiles pierce an additional target roll, though, however, that does not apply to the crawler. That's local to me, so that doesn't make any difference for the crawler. I use pierce support on the crawler, or projectile weakness as a curse. Right now I'm playing around with temp chains as my curse, so I'm using pierce support. You can use proj weakness and have that be your source of a curse and get a higher damage link than pierce potentially, but I'm really enjoying temp chains as a defensive tool. Anyways, let's move on to the rings. Now, this is probably the most expensive core item to the build, but it's not even really core, because you can just start with a Thief's Torment in this slot, which is what I did all the way up to level 93 or 4, I believe. and that will give you your life and mana sustain very easily. The ultimate endgame goal, however, is a pair of these Elder Rings, where you have life and life gain for each time you hit by your attacks, and then you multi-mod on a bunch of other powerful things. You definitely need that minus mana cost as well. So the core of the ring is the life gained minus mana cost. The other suffixes can be whatever powerful suffixes you can get your hands on. I deemed +1 minimum endurance charges to be worth it, and then I needed some help with res, so 20 all res, switching off of Thieves' Torment, which has 25 to 30 all res. It made the switch a lot easier. However, these rings, as I mentioned, are a lot more expensive than a Thieves' Torment, so I would very heavily recommend anyone looking to get into this build with a bit of a budget to go the Thieves' Torment route. The crafting method that I used to acquire these was corroded metallic and prismatic fossils, which narrows down your prefixes to life gained, mana gained, rarity, and mana. That is literally all that the rings can possibly roll as prefixes. You roll that until you get... you have a few different situations you potentially hit. You either get a ring that has the two rolls you want, life and life gained, plus an open prefix and an open suffix. Then you're on easy street, because all you do is prefixes can't be changed, scour down to the two prefixes you want, and then multi-mod from there. Or if you get an open prefix but 3 suffixes, then you have to annul and hope you hit a suffix. If you get a 6-mod item that's full on prefixes and suffixes, I would just roll over that. I don't think it's worth risking the double annul with how expensive annuls are right now. But, you know, if you want to play fast and loose, feel free to. Thieves' Torment is always an option, though. You don't absolutely need these rings. They're just a very nice upgrade once you can afford them. What did I have next? Let's move on to the body armor, which I'm sure the observant among the audience have already spotted, is a Calm's Heart. Calm's Heart's really good in this build. You can put your links into your helmet and your gloves. You don't need the chest piece for links. Calm's Heart's a very good chess piece. Up until the Calm's Heart, I used a Belly of the Beast, however, and I had a 5-linked Belly of the Beast from a previous build that I threw my Rain of Arrows links into. That works just fine. You can use rare with life and res and % max life, something along those lines. Really just try not to rely on whatever you use in the body armor slot too much for resistances, or else it'll be painful switching to the Calm's Heart eventually. So, yeah, and you do want to eventually switch to it. Lore Weave is a competitive option, but I found that the extra max HP from Calm's Heart does a better job at all around keeping me alive against chaos and physical as well as elemental damage, and I prefer it personally. But you definitely could throw a Lore Weave into this build if you wanted to. There's not very many builds that you can't throw a Lore Weave into and have it be decent. Alright, moving on to the gloves now. We have a pair of gloves that are a pseudo 6-link, sort of like the helmet. And this is where our Rain of Arrows goes. You try and aim for poison and faster attack support so that you can then make space for all the other links that you want. Which right now I'm using Curse on Hit, Temporal Chains, Withering Touch, and of course my main link Rain of Arrows, which is specifically at a low level to keep the mana cost low, so that my mana cost is 1 with these 2 minus mana cost rings. You can just use a pair of gloves that have either poison or faster attacks, and then drop the Withering Touch for whichever support you don't end up getting, or just go without the faster attacks entirely, and if you hit poison, then you do the 4 links that I actually have, you know, the Curse on Hit, Curse, Withering Touch, Rain of Arrows, and then poison, and your attack speed is just going to feel a bit more lackluster. But that's probably fine, given that you have a Quill Rain, and so it's not going to feel that bad. This is eventually what you want to shoot for, though, and again, the way that I crafted these, single socket resonator spam with Aberrant. I went through a bunch of different setups looking for exactly the right thing, and what I ended up with was just single socket Aberrant was most effective, getting the most rolls I could out of my money. Single socket Bound for the helmet, single socket Aberrant for the gloves. And I think last but not least is the boots. I went for a pair of boots specifically with an open prefix, life, res, movement speed. One of the open prefix I could craft cannot be frozen, and free up a flask affix, which I'm trying to get the flask affix that gives you 3% regen, the craft you can get from the Mastermind, but I've not run very much Mastermind this league because it's a terrible idea to run Mastermind because it resets your chart. That's a topic for a different video. So I don't actually have that craft, but I'm looking for somebody trustworthy and hardcore that can do it for me. In the meanwhile, we've just, you know, got some extra iron skin affix here or something like that. And yeah, look for a good boot enchant as well. Those are pretty darn easy to hit. I really like the 2% life regen if you've been hit recently. It's pretty strong. You can get dodge chance if you've been crit recently, and move speed if you haven't been hit recently. Those are all good. I think the last thing that I missed is Abyssal Jewels for this build. This one in the belt is pretty basic, life, res, and res that I needed, but you want to be going for life as a priority for sure, and minion attack speed or minion move speeds. This is attack speed if you or your minions have killed recently. I think we've got a move speed one over here. No, that's attack speed. And that one's minion movement speed, and the minion life regen doesn't matter. Flat damage and percent increased minion damage, not too terribly useful for the crawler, because if we look at the gem itself, this is a 21 gem and a +3 helmet, so it's a level 24 gem. Take it with a grain of salt, but we have 71 to 131 added physical damage per stack of virulence, and there's 40 stacks of virulence. So if you add, 5 to 13 flat to that, it's going to be a drop in the bucket comparatively. It won't scale you very well. Scaling attack speed is far more efficient, or just getting defensive stats out of your jewels. So that's probably what you want to spend that on. And that about covers my gear. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, and you'd like to catch more content from the channel, all you got to do is subscribe. You can also find me on Twitter and on Twitch. Those links will be down in the description below. Hope to see you there sometime. Have a good one, everybody.